executive meeting. It's my pleasure to welcome you here on a rather damp and miserly day. At least we haven't got the rains and storms that we saw last week. Here. I do just wish to extend our all thanks as members to the council officers who kept all our residents safe during that time. I believe I might say there was no water in houses on this occasion, maybe a very few, but it was remarkable effort to keep everyone safe and everyone is so really pleased that with the former colleagues in that. In welcoming you to the meeting, can I remind you that it's only executive members present in the room that are taking decisions in this meeting. Others in attendance are here to provide advice to the executive. The agenda and papers have all been published on the council's website in advance of this meeting. The council will be making a recording of the meeting and this will be published in due course. So today's meeting will be run using a hybrid format. Executive lead members and key officers are physically present in the council chamber here at Brinton Way, Yeovil, and key officers include the chief executive, the executive director for strategy, workforce and localities, the executive director for resources and corporate services, and the monitoring officer. Other elected members and officers may physically or remotely join the meeting to speak on specific agenda items or to observe. This meeting is being broadcast and therefore other members of the public and partners can observe the meeting remotely. Some good practice for hybrid meetings, please. Please only use the meeting chat function for the purposes of this meeting and primarily only if you might want to speak, but I would prefer it if you could use the hands up option on Teams to do that if you are able to. Please only speak at the chair's invitation and could you kindly say your name before speaking. Can I highlight the importance of turning off microphones and cameras when not speaking. We've got Dave Mitten online with a big grey block box, which I'm not quite sure whether that means your camera is on, off, or likely malfunctioning. Would you be able to attend to that, please? Number one, apologies for absence. I believe we have all executive league members present and no apologies from officers either. I know that some of the associate league members are not in the room, they're on the line. Do we have any declarations of interest, please? Other than those that are displayed as personal interests as members of city, town and parish councils. That list is available on our website for inspection. No other declarations of interest. We move to the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of October. Are there any comments or questions on those minutes, please? I'm not seeing any. Can I see a proposer? Councillor Rowell, seconded Councillor Lyshawn. Those executive members in favour, please. And those against. Thank you. That's clearly carried. And please to sign those minutes. And we move on to public question time. We've got 5 members of the public who are wishing to speak. And I to propose to take those questions with the agenda items which they pertain to, so that we've got a clear flow in terms of the debate and discussion, so that the answers link into what we're going to talk about subsequently. So item 5 is our executive forward plan, which has been circulated. Are there any comments from executive league members on that forward plan? Not seeing any. Are there any other members in the room and any members online? No comments on the forward plan. Our agenda item is just to note that That doesn't require a formal proposal, as far as I'm aware. So we have duly noted that, which brings us on to item 6. I just wondered whether Mr. Bean and Mr. Redwell are online.
Yes, I am, Chair.
Okay, could you? I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Oh, it's Nigel. Hello, Nigel.
Hi.
Please, may we have the question?
Thanks. Well, I know you've got them in front of you, so I won't read it out verbatim. But Public Finance reported that short-termism leaves public services in a doom loop, noting the problems in adult social care and work shortages. And also there are funding issues in children's social care and SEND, and some local authorities are at risk because of housing matters. I think they're mainly districts. The report also suggested a relationship reset with staff with improved working conditions, workforce planning and pay negotiations. Then I'll skip on. It was reported that deputy leader and lead members for resources said no one wants to be in this position, but are well aware of the implications of a section 114 notice. Question 1, does this mean that Somerset Council is in effect doing the work that unelected commissioners would be expected to do if a notice was issued, a 114 notice? And then question 2 talks about other councils like Croydon, Thurrock and Slough, who are allowed to increase the council tax above the referendum limit, which for this council I think will be 5% or 4.99. Is this council considering, and has it modelled, including the proportionate increase in the adult social care precept, raising council tax to a level that would balance the budget? And if so, what would be the approximate council tax increase over the amount allowed for a referendum? And then, since many other councils are facing similar issues, districts, housing, etc., the County Council Network reported, as the County Council Network reported, how are councils working together to pressurise the government for realistic increases in the local government settlement to meet the existing needs of service users rather than further rationing of local government services? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel, and Liz Licence to respond, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Nigel, if I may call you Nigel. Thank you for your questions. So I'll take them order. Question 1, first of all. Somerset Council is doing the work it is here to do. What is undoubtedly an inflection point in the long life of local authorities in Somerset and in the short life of this new council. I believe that it is better for the residents, businesses and communities of Somerset that where difficult decisions need to be taken, that they are taken by local representatives with a democratic mandate and strong interest in securing the best for Somerset, even in difficult times. So we are not doing the work of unelected commissioners. We are doing our job that we were elected to do, using our very best endeavours to make sure that we do not need to issue a section 114 notice. And then, Chair, if I may go on to question 2, parts A and B. So 2A. So this is an interesting question because it concerns Somerset and council tax levels. So looking back to the introduction of council tax in the early 1990s, we can see that Somerset has had distinct challenges throughout that have led to the current structural deficit, where the income of this council cannot keep pace with expenditure, particularly on social care services. So I refer again, as I have before, from what I've learned from other members, that when Avon Council was formed, the council tax base for Somerset was reduced in terms of house banding numbers, because many of the higher band houses near Bristol and Bath moved to Avon, which of course is now split into 2 unitaries, Baines and North Somerset. The yield from council tax was clearly affected by the 6-year council tax freeze, And although the previous administration then used maximum percentage increases and adult social care precept, we have more than £20 million lost from the base budget every year. And we have a planned fee council tax for Somerset Council that is lower than other unitary councils in the South West and lower than the average across the country. As we also know, Somerset has an ageing demographic, and there is an obvious correlation with demand on social care being greater at the same time as 1% of a council tax increases produces considerably less income than in other places in the country. So to go on, we have no idea yet whether government will consider raising the referendum limit across the country and whether there may be a higher maximum level for social care precept. We do know that people's budgets are well stretched already by the cost of living crisis, by higher energy costs and interest rates. We have a council tax reduction scheme, which my colleagues and all members will remember from the November full council last year, and that will be revisited for the next financial year. We also have the exceptional hardship scheme to help those whose budgets are tightest. But we realise now more than ever that government needs to take a very careful look at the future of local government, as there seems to be little understanding at times of the huge importance of the services and facilities provided locally. Indeed, it is a shame that members of Parliament don't have to do work experience at a local authority. That would be to the benefit of the whole country, and I, for one, would welcome the opportunity to arrange their schedule. So going on now, Chair, to question 2B. This is about councils working together, pressurising government, and I would say that councils are most definitely working together across the country and across the political spectrum. We took the decision, and you and I took the decision at the LGA conference in 22 to stay in the county council network, to rejoin the district council network as one Somerset Council, to join in the local government information unit, which is a specialist think tank. And we are, of course, part of the Local Government Association, the LGA, where the Leader of Opposition is the chair of the Community Wellbeing Board, which has a responsibility to represent councils on social care nationally. We clearly need all of those memberships. We need the collective national influence and the combined data. This is by far the most effective way of influencing government, as well as helping all councils explain to the public this unprecedented time of extreme challenge in the life of local government. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dave, for your question, and Liz for your answer. Sorry, Nigel, for your question, and Liz for your answer. And now move on to David Bridgewell online, please.
Yes, can you hear me, Chairman?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Fine.
Thank you. Yeah, my questions really are about the assets of the council. I don't have any problem with the selling off of the shopping centres or the shops in Bristol, whatever other property the council has that obviously is not operational use. My concern would be, and my organisation's concern would be, as a member of your Bus Service Advisory Board, that no assets that are needed to run our public transport system are put on any sort of idea to sell. So whether that's Bridgewater bus station or any leases we may have on Yeovil where you are today, which I understand the Northern Ireland Property Company wants to sell as a going concern with the shops and proposed housing, but also the bus station, which we need to retain in some form or other. But there's a number of them. There's 7 of them altogether. Wales, which is quite a valuable site. There's obviously Frome, which maybe not so valuable. And of course, there's Taunton, which we have big government grants, so that won't be sellable. But There are others, coach stations and other things that make money, sort of in Glastonbury and Street. Wells Bus Station has considerable income, used to come into Mendip Council. So I think what we'd be asking is those assets are not put up for sale, but also we look at whether we're sweating those assets enough and whether we're charging enough revenue for tourist coaches in some of our tourist spots where we own the coach stations, or whether or not we're really, and it's a difficult one, but Mike Rigby has a budget, and obviously are we maximising the level of money coming into the car parks? And we've still got some free car parks, and that's very unusual in Southwest England, when Canton comes to mind. And that money, of course, could go back into the transport budget, so we'd actually find some more money. So I do think, I know some have gone up recently, but I do think a review of parking charges for coaches and cars would be in order to raise, especially to keep the money for the transport department. And also, of course, Chairman, everybody in their rates is paying for those car parks, and 40-something% of the population of Somerset and the surrounding unitaries do not actually use the car parks. So that is an issue. So I think that should be looked at. So those are my points. Thank you. That's based on my 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I believe Councillor Rigby is going to respond. Mike, thank you.
Sorry, Mike.
That's it.
Yeah, because I didn't impress you, but okay. It's their story. I apologise.
Thank you for your question, David. Some good suggestions there, as ever. We've no current proposals to dispose of any of the assets that you've listed. We will, when resources permit, look to exploit the income potential of all of the transport hubs and the areas that you've suggested to support transport and to support council services, particularly where additional facilities would provide a better customer experience. So that's work that is underway. It's not as far advanced as I might like, but we have begun, for example, with areas like the Gateway Park and Ride, looking at where we might be able to provide a better passenger experience and more income. So that work has begun, and I'll certainly keep you up to speed, David, with our progress on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby, and Councillor White, do you have an additional comment to make in the notes that says you do, but you're not looking at me, so I'm just checking that you didn't want to say anything.
Just to say that we're trying to help the meetings move forward so we can deliberative work with each other to make sure there is one response when 2 names are against something.
But thanks for clarifying. I wasn't sure in my notes, which brings us on to our next question, which is Eva. Well, I thought you by surprise, hadn't I?
I thought somebody else was speaking.
No, that's a subsequent agenda item. 3 speakers on this one.
Thank you, George.
Yeah, Bill, if you could tell me after a minute, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, please. Loudly. Okay, well, you've got the questions.
Just hold on a moment, the mic's not on, and I'm going to stop watching.
I'll speak up, shall I?
For those that are at home, you might need to speak very loudly or use the microphone.
Yeah, I can't be in Nigel or the other person. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, sorry, that's a bit loud. Right, okay, regarding joining together, okay, and standing shoulder to shoulder, but, you know, the Local Government Association has a list of wants, unsuccessful because the government isn't interested, more interested in subsidising multi-billionaires when it should be the other way round. Now, about Liz saying councils join together, well, it hasn't led to the government providing enough funding, okay? Now, the source of the figures, you know, on the table, you know, the squiggly table, is from Unison, okay? So, I think one possibility could be that the Local Government Association and the other association that this has mentioned could shoulder some responsibility to take a collective action. This is about standing side by side, and they probably have to crowd funds and take legal action against the government for the deliberate asset stripping, 1 minute, thank you, asset stripping of community resources for a political agenda that has nothing to do with building stable and resilient communities. In this wealthy country, we need state-funded services that form the infrastructure for the nation's population, so that health, housing, education, social care are funded properly. Okay, so next, regarding, behaving like a trade union, okay? I'm 71 now, I've had 50 years being a union activist, and regarding the belief systems I wrote about, I have to see obstacles as stepping stones toward empowerment and representing members. Okay, so I want to give you an example of an excellent trade union. Yeah, the clerks dispute, 8 solid weeks on strike. They had a massive demo through sleepy streets, and it forced a Chinese multi-billionaire to come all the way from Tokyo because the brand name was being affected. Thank you. He tried to take everything from them, and the stewards and Paul Novak, Secretary of the TUC, was saying they went back to the strikers and said, "What do you want to lose?" And it was the rate of pay. They were sleepless about, the cutting pay, and they won. Okay, so that's another example. Half a minute. Thank you. So that's another example. There's a lot more that I could go into, but I can't. I've got 3 minutes, but politics is about power and distribution of resources. Okay, don't get the buses booked yet, but I don't want to go to somewhere and there'll just be a dribble of councillors. Yeah, I think you've all got to stand shoulder to shoulder with your people that you serve. And I think it's good Dean's statement, rather than the leveller controlling the narrative. Dean's statement is very accurate. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eva, for your question and your impassioned speech as always. And we always love to see that commitment to social justice. So my response to your first question, as asked, is there are very clear legal roles and responsibilities on councillors and officers. Officers must try to offer members proposals in the budget that would enable the full council to set a balanced budget. With the current size of the budget deficits, there are no good solutions. So it is certain that proposals will include efficiency and other savings, a transformation plan seeking to rapidly automate processes, increases in charges beyond inflation in many cases, and a significant programme of asset disposal, the offer of devolution of services and assets to our town, city and parish councils, significant service reductions, including in some cases the full closure of functions, and with huge regret, substantial staff reductions. Officers are required to offer potential solutions and councillors to set a balanced budget. If we cannot do that, then we will be in the position of issuing a Section 114 notice. Councillors are under a legal duty to set a balanced budget every year, and not to do so will ensure government intervention. Until councillors have seen the package of measures proposed by officers to balance the budget, we cannot currently say what the collective response will be. The law, however, is clear that we cannot decline to set a budget. And in response to your second and third question, I entirely agree that there are large pressures within the national financing of local government and wider public services, and these are a significant factor in Somerset Council's current position. Officers are in regular communication with senior civil servants, and after this meeting, I'll be writing to the Secretary of State myself, highlighting my concerns, and I've always briefed some local MPs, and I look forward to briefing further of them over the coming days. And between myself, executive members and senior officers, we have briefed many of our partners in all sorts of sectors. Can I assure you that we will always stand shoulder to shoulder with those who have Somerset's best interests at heart. My colleagues and our partners will continue to lobby for Somerset. And please remember that we are also Somerset residents. It is also our families that are impacted by the difficult decisions that we will need to take. My career as a teacher in Somerset, I saw many of the challenges faced by families that we have here, and my own role as a parent and as a carer, saw it with my own family as well. So very happy to sit on the coach next to you, Eva. Okay, thank you. Move on to item 6, which is our general fund revenue budget monitoring report for month 5, which is on page 31 to 70 of the agenda. And I'd like to call on Liz Lyshaw to introduce this item and highlight any key points.
Thank you, Chair. I apologise in advance for a rather longer introduction on this paper than the next paper. I see them as kind of step 1 and step 2 in our agenda today. They are obviously very clearly linked. So in introducing this month 5 report, I must acknowledge and apologise for the fact that the report is out of date. Month 6 will come to next month's executive. And although the projected outturn figure has reduced from the previous version that was seen at other committees, it is still much too low. It's now clear from the national press and media that we are in the uncomfortable company of many councils. 1 in 10, according to the County Councils Network, at risk of a Section 114 notice. Our financial situation is moving fast, and the appropriate consideration is being given in the committees, including audit, to whom I thank for their very careful consideration, and actions are being taken in the back office where huge amounts of work are underway. Rather than keep that scale of concern in the back office, I've taken the approach of addressing in public my huge concerns for Somerset Council's viability. I've shared that concern is shared with all my colleagues, and I'm sure with all elected members, and increasingly with residents and businesses of Somerset. I realise that with the work of local government still underway, this strategy of openness and transparency will cause more concern for the officers of this very big and still immature organisation as they continue with business as usual, including the new Microsoft Dynamics system, their work on restructuring teams of officers and trying to find very considerable savings in this year and in the following years. But that is our reality. We have to acknowledge that the business case for One Somerset, which we have inherited and which is still the focus of our endeavours, was written in a different time. Although it is still the focus for LGR, local government reorganisation, it is no longer as relevant in its entirety due to the following impacts on local government. And I will list them. It's quite a long list. So since 2019, we've had COVID, global pandemic, the vaccination programme, and now the end of all the government grants, the tens of millions of government grants for Somerset, which masked issues with providers of social care costs and our fee structure for adult social care. We have had Brexit with its impact on European workers in Somerset, many in the care sector. Brexit is a factor that often dare not speak its name. We are Lib Dems. We are absolutely open about the effects of Brexit on the workforce in Somerset and indeed across the whole country. We have had the commencement and postponement or abandonment, I'm not sure which, of the fair cost of care exercise, which opened the book across the whole country, exposing what could be seen as a low fee structure for Somerset. We have had Sadly, the invasion of Ukraine, causing so many people to leave their homes for other countries, and a massive impact on energy costs. We have seen inflation move to double the figures, and particularly affecting as well as energy food prices. We have seen the short and disastrous period of Liz Truss as Prime Minister, with a mini budget that had maxi impact and which led to resulting increases in interest rates after historically low rates from 2010 to 22. We have seen increases in homelessness caused by those increasing rents and mortgages because of the interest rates. We've seen as well reductions in the value of commercial properties at the same time as government looks to councils to dispose of such assets before taking additional borrowing. And we have seen the government take the view that local authority reserves should be used rather than kept in reserve at a time when we are seeing the absolute necessity for general fund reserves as well as all our earmarked reserves. So these have all changed the financial landscape of this country and therefore of Somerset. We could not have embarked on LGR at a more challenging time. We could not possibly look for a viable future for Somerset Council at a more difficult time. Yet that is our task and our responsibility. And through the detail of projected overspends in adults and children's, and with the medium-term financial strategy update paper coming as the next agenda item with its clear recommendations, we are starting to understand the scale and the focus of the actions needed to find a way to best serve the people of Somerset, create a more sustainable Somerset Council without the intervention of government. In this month 5 paper chair, I also acknowledge there is concern about income from the amalgamated portfolio of commercial investments due to the need to start the disposal, if we decide that in the next paper, of course. And that in the directorates where former district services have come together, there is still considerable work needed in getting budgets into a place where monthly monitoring is more meaningful. And I also realise that situation has impacted on our maintained schools. So I will ask, if I may, Chair, for Jason Vaughan, the Executive Director of Core Resources and Corporate Services, and our Section 151 officer, to give us more detail on this budget monitoring report, and to give us an indication of what we should expect from the new version that will come forward for the month 6 quarter 2 report. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner. Members will recall the decision taken to introduce the new finance system, Microsoft Dynamics, for the new council. This was based upon delivering a minimum viable product for the new council April 24. Month 6, we have taken a step forward on budget monitoring with the introduction of a solid reporting tool. This provides us with accurate financial information and the interpret. The experience of every other unitary council is that when you bring budgets together, it is difficult. Councils account for things in slightly different ways, and you also discover a number of errors and a number of different assumptions and judgments made. We are no different. We have experienced all of those. Budgets are being invited in the correct place for the new council. And as I said previously, this takes time and resources, but we are getting there, and we will complete that whole exercise by the end of the year. It's looking more at the individual service budgets now and aligning budgets into the right place with the right budget holder. A particular problem for us has been around the staffing establishment of the HR records in SAP, not allowing to the approved staffing budgets held in finance, and considerable work has been ongoing on this to correct this, and I think we are nearly there now on that as well. Some significant progress on those two areas. Staffing establishment is quite complex, that we're bringing 5 former councils' staffing structures together into one new council staffing structure, and obviously they don't match. For some services, it's fairly clear and simple and easy, but others, it's just not. And that obviously adds to some of the uncertainty and difficulties we've experienced during the time. Whilst on staffing, I can report that National Pay Board, the staffing increases has been agreed with the trade unions at £1,925. This will be paid to start this month and backdated for the 1st of April. When the budget was agreed by council in February, we estimated the national pay award for the year would be 5%. Obviously, settlement of 1965 isn't the percentage. The work we've done today estimates that to be equivalent of 6.1% of our pay bill. The extra cost is approximately £2 million when taken into account employers' own costs. We'll have more accurate figures over the next month. The additional cost for that has been forecast already in the budget monitoring report before you and allowed for in the corporate contingency. The executive has previously agreed, due to the financial challenge we face, to put in a number of measures, first of which is monthly reporting to scrutiny and the executive. It's unfortunate that I think this is the last time it happens, but scrutiny is tomorrow, so unfortunately comes after today. Going forward, scrutiny is always before the executive, so we'll be able to feed the comments from the scrutiny committees through to the executive. As the Section 151 officer, I'm very concerned about the overall forecast here within the budget being spent, particularly for year end. In September, I put in place some spending controls at the departmental level, which was set out in the month 3 budget monitoring report to the executive, which were approved and are set out in paragraph 7 on the report on page 39. However, I didn't feel these were having the desired impact on the overspend, and these have now been strengthened by putting in full controls across the entire council. Duncan Sharkey, as Chief Executive, myself announced these at the start at last week's leadership briefing, and the Chief Executive has emailed all staff informing them of the new arrangements this week. Overall board for managing the in-year overspend has been set up and is chaired by Mel Locke, focused on reducing down the in-year overspend. And to support her in that work, we have set up 3 separate boards: a recruitment control board, a commercial procurement control board, a spend control board. We also have set up a round of placements for both adults and children's funds there, looking to strengthen those as well, and adding further challenge, given the level of spend that goes through those. The key variances in the report are summarised in the table on page 34, showing an adverse variance of £27.3 million. The details for each of the services are set out on pages 37 to 66 of the report. The month 6 report will be a slight change in format, with a summary table showing more detail down to individual service level. We will continue to review and refine the format of the report. Key focus being highlighting those areas of most significant concern, including setting out what actions are being taken to address them. The areas that we are seeing causing the variances at the moment not only impact on this current financial year, but they also flow through to the next financial year. And you'll see that in the financial strategy update report, the next item on the agenda. Any overspend from this financial year will have to be funded from reserves. And we currently have £49.8 million in general reserves to cover this. However, our overall level of reserves is less than I would like them to be, given the financial challenges we face in this year and next year. Any use of reserves to fund this year's overspend is therefore not available to support next year's budget. That is obviously a concerning position. So the focus is very much reducing down the current year's position. I'm confident the measures that we put in place through the various boards will see a reduction in spend. What I am not confident about, though, is that we can get this overspend down to 0. So I think we will see some progress. I do not think it will be down to 0, given where those high spending areas are showing through. I'm happy to take any questions or any points on the report.
Looking around the table, I'd customarily just ask for adults and children just maybe to add as the two areas that are most clearly identified. Is there anything that you wanted to add to Mr. Vaughan's comments?
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the problems has been this year that we have, no one can predict the high, I think Liz has already said, that no one can predict the high inflation that we've all faced. Fair cost of care has definitely not helped us. It's a half measure that's actually caused the problem. So what we're finding in the second half of the year is now causing us a slight problem of overspend. But I'd like to reassure members that actually, if you look at the 24-25 budget, that actually adults were predicting that would be about £40.5 million we would need in our budgets. So actually, when we start saying, I know we need to balance the overspend this year, but when we start saying that, I have to say, I think the finance team of the adults is pretty good. No one can predict high interest, high inflation. If I could predict high inflation, I'd be a billionaire. And no one can predict that. No one can predict interest rates. No one can predict what's happening to this country. So I think, we are doing all we can to address the overspend in our budgets. But to be fair to everything, adults, I didn't even understand it when I was chair of audit. Adults have always had the budget has never been enough. We've always been trying to cut it, and that's a big mistake. And it's been going back for a very long time. Also, we haven't got any very little non-statutory spend. So, and everything we've got is if we get rid of it, will cause us a problem in the future. So it is that, we are doing all we can. I'll assure this council that I am committed, and Mel's committed and the team to do all we can to bring everything back in line. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Fred, got a question, I believe.
So my question, I'll caveat it with the fact that I've only been a tier 2 or unitary county councillor for around 18 months now. So my knowledge of adults social care in particular is constantly growing every day. But for me, Liz, you outlined the challenges that we face as a nation and the impact that that has had on councils. But what I recall, I think I must have only just become leader of Somerset Western Taunton at the time. So let's say 2019, that actually Somerset County Council at the time went up front and centre and said, actually, we have a funding crisis in Somerset. So in relation to that, we've always argued that funding in Somerset has not been where it should be, and that in moving forward as to where we are today, that has been growing because of all those reasons that you mentioned, Liz. So I think my question is around why is it that, over those 4 years, locally, what has changed? Or actually, we knew about it then and we're building on it.
I don't know if I may come back there, please. Certainly knew about it when Panorama programmes were aired on BBC and when Panorama had been filming in Somerset. So those who were not county councillors at the time would not have seen that filming taking place in Shire Hall and across Somerset. So we understood it then. It was laid out very clearly that Somerset and indeed across the country had forthcoming issues with paying for social care and ensuring that all the people who needed that care could have it, not just those who could afford to pay for themselves. We have historic factors. We have had since then, of course, the global pandemic. We have had those very large COVID grants, mostly to the upper tier authorities, which were then went out to care homes, rightly, to support them. Monies were paid out on PPE to support the care homes, rightly. One could argue that Somerset did a better job than other parts of the country. That would be my personal view. There were other factors where we had a highly experienced public health team who could have run track and trace locally. The network of directors of public health could have run it across the whole country, and instead it was sent out to be organised by someone who, as far as I know, her only claim to fame was as a racehorse owner in the West Country. And they spent, I think it was £32 billion on track and trace. I would put to you and all of my colleagues, indeed the whole country, that should and could have been organised through local authorities. That is one of the scandals of the COVID pandemic and one of the scandals of our time. And there are plenty of others. So we knew this was a problem, those of us who were county councillors. We understood that problem. We inherited a budget for 22-23 that looks as if it was under-predicted. We're looking at a budget for 23-24, where we now know that all of those factors of inflation, interest rates, and the rest of it are now projecting an overspend. We are looking to put together a budget for next year without government intervention. We need this government, and preferably the next government, to look really carefully at this. And it will be interesting to see what is in party manifestos for social care going forward. This is one of the very biggest challenges for our country. And I'm not talking just about adult social care here. I'm talking about children's services, where some children, too many, went through a really, really difficult time during lockdowns. And we are still seeing the impact of that on their mental health. And so we have lots of issues to deal with. The government, so we have Somerset's issues. The government have the same issues across the whole country. If you're seeing any evidence of them getting a grip, I saw nothing from the coverage of the King's speech. We have to wait for the Chancellor later this month. We have to wait for the local authorities settlement before Christmas. We're seeing councils of all sizes and all political colours sending out distress signals on the same items. It's a huge challenge. We cannot pretend that it is not.
Thank you, Liz. And to build on that answer, I was opposition spokesman for our social care at the time of the Panorama broadcast and the investigations into that, and we fully supported that. There was a cross-party consensus that this was a national issue that the whole country needed to talk about, and very much wanted to draw it to the public's attention. I went back to rewatch it. Unfortunately, it's not an iPlayer anymore, but the article that was on the BBC website still is there. And the final comment is around national government needing to support it to solve this within the next 10 years or else. We're 5 years later on, and the or else is perhaps slightly earlier than was forecast then. I look back over the last few years I was first elected to this council in 2017, and some of you know it's 2 days after my dear wife died as a result of her breast cancer, which had spread to her spine. And so the last 6 months were spent in a care home. I look back at what was being spent below the threshold. So the Somerset County Council contribution to my late wife's payment was £492.16. Had that care come forward in the 22-23 financial year, we'd have been looking at £575. Such an £83 increase over that 5 years. In 1 year since then, to what we're paying now is approximately £900 for an equivalent replacement. That's a £325 increase. That inflation rate in care, and that's to do with energy, it's to do with staff costs, it's to do with the increase in agency, it's to do with the fair cost of care exercise, which was initially aimed at looking at changing the subsidy that the self-funders are putting into those that are funded by the local authority to make that system fair. By abandoning that, we've opened up the books and had that dialogue with the industry, and the industry has come to us, come public with the true cost of care. We are in a situation which is national. We are in a situation that particularly impacts the most vulnerable members of our society. We're not going to play politics with that. We need a national answer to a solution that we all agreed was a problem 5 years ago. We are still waiting for that answer. We're still waiting. We're still waiting. Let's have it, please. Any other comments or questions from members of the executive? Say again.
Thank you, Bill. It's using words. Just to let you all know as well, some really good news in adults. Our home care and domiciliary care, if you want to say, is doing exceptionally well. It's where we want to be, keeping people in their own homes, and that is a credit to what we've done. And we'll be talking a little bit about this later in the papers. I just want to make it clear it's not all bad news. It's amazing news, and I think other authorities will look at what we're doing, and we're leading light in this at the moment. So just to let you know that.
Okay, looking around the table for any other league members or associate league members. Any other members in the room wish to speak? And any members online? No, I'm not seeing any. We have recommendations in front of us. A, notes the forecast overspend of 27.3 million, 5.5% for the year, and the recovery actions being taken to address this. B, to approve that it will continue to receive a monthly update on the financial position and actions being taken to address it. C, note that the format of the budget monitoring will be changed from month 6. And D, to approve a £0.3 million budget requirement from the corporate contingency budget for strategic asset management to carry out the RAC reinforced autoclave directed concrete surveys. Oh, sorry, David.
Well, I apologise, I'm using the little boys' room, but I would have something to say.
Just looking for guidance because I have moved on. It's at my discretion. Yeah. I'm not sure what you missed while you were outside the room, David. So second, you think you just missed Dean's piece? Okay, let's just see what your question is then.
Thank you for that, and I apologise.
Mike,
Okay, so I apologise for that. But I do think it's important that I ask a number of questions and just respond to a few things. First of all, I've come to these meetings for the last X number of months, along with Mandy Chilcott, and Mandy does apologise that she can't be here, but unfortunately her mother died last week, otherwise she wouldn't be here. And what we try to do every time is to say if there is a problem here which is developing. And during that 6 months, I think we've been mocked, we've been accused, shouted at various meetings and various times.
I'm sorry, I do not recognise the characterisation. Could you please explain to me who has mocked you and who has shouted at you, David?
So certainly Councillor Rigby, when I raised a 114 matter, said the only person that's ever brought this council to the edge of the 114 issue.
That's a factual statement, and I don't believe you shouted.
So moving on to my questions, I've got 3 or 4. First one is, we seem to spend a lot of time talking about the reasons, but very little time talking about the actions. And what I'd like to know is, when actually are we going to hear what actions are being taken by this council to counter the situation it's in? That's number 1. Number 2, I don't think Liz answered the question, but the question remains, because she said that this council was 20 million short on council tax because of the freeze. What percentage would you like to raise the council tax by to fill that gap? Because in actual fact, it's in the Conservative Local Government Manifesto for national government to raise council tax. What would you like me to argue for? So can you give me that figure, please? The third one is, what's happened to the Newton savings? And the fourth one is, so if 1 in 10 councils are at the edge of 114, that means 9 in 10 aren't. And I understand Wiltshire are setting a 3-year balanced budget. Gloucestershire, Cornwall, Buckinghamshire, Dorset, and various other large counties around us are all coming in on budget and setting next year's budget balanced as well. So what makes us different?
Okay, listen.
Level of council tax. When we get to the NTFS paper, I think that's where we've got graphs and figures of what those comparative councils receive in council tax. So that the more than 20 million a year from the base budget is part of the issue. Council tax, I'm told, and I've looked at the figures of Somerset figure compared with England average. Somerset was set low back in the early 90s, which was the time post poll tax, unity charge. We then had the 6 years of council tax freeze, which we all acknowledge it's a factual thing. My figures showed 24 million from the base budget. And Jason Bourne's figure was nearer 20 million. So rather than fall out with Jason, which wouldn't help anyone, I say more than 20 million from the base budget each year. And then, so we have the low council tax, the ageing demographic, the previous low fee structure, which I know that Dean Ruddle as leader member, and I would say gave good value for the people of Somerset at the time, but it wasn't robust enough. And I'm sure quite fairly, because of staffing costs, energy costs, food costs and everything else, to withstand the onslaught from that whole list of items that I read out that have happened since Panorama were filming in Somerset. We can't change any of that. It's happened. We have to live with it. We're also trying to we have created the One Council. We are past vesting day. We now realise the scale of the challenge going forward for the next years. I can't give you an answer on council tax because I have no idea how the government may approach that. We know what the referendum limit is. We know that in the past there was a year when there was.
The question was, what would you like it to be? I think.
Excuse me, you speak with the invitation on the chair, Mr. Follivill, thank you.
So I recall the 3 years where adult social care precept was allowed to be a total of 6%. And I think if I remember rightly, the previous administration took 3%, 2%, 1%. I would suggest that the LGA and others might actually approach the government about some greater flexibility on that precept. I would suggest that you might want to, in your role at the LGA, suggest greater flexibility across children's and adults, because I remember my colleague Mike Rigby at the LGA conference this summer doing a kind of straw poll of people he spoke to, and he said he was hearing more about children's than adults in some councils, and I've since seen 45% of councils referencing children and 25% referencing adults. So we've got national factors and we've got local factors and we've got the factors of council tax in Somerset. The Newton savings are delayed from what I hoped they would be. My personal view is when you embark on a programme of work like that, it's better to do it properly, even if it takes a little longer than you expected. And when I've had briefings with Mel Locke, and Mel Locke may be a much better person to talk about this, I have been convinced by the arguments put forward of the people from Newton. We could not possibly employ people to do that work where they were only needed for a short period of time. even if we could do that in easier times, we couldn't do that while we're going through LGR. We have got this kind of, the plates are moving and they're all moving at the same time, and we have to find a way through that. I don't know, Chair, whether it's possible for Mel Locke to come in on Newton.
I was just looking towards councillor Rubble, who is doing the rugby pass through to.
I don't have to take it a minute, but I can assure you, David, that actually Newton is on target to save 10 million over the next 2 years. But if Mel wants to put a bit more emphasis on that, I'll hand over.
So you'll be aware, David, that we talked this through quite frequently, with it being here or in other areas, that we were going to be, it is a slow burn. We knew that we wouldn't get 5 million in this year. We didn't start the programme of change until August. Therefore, we have to do quite a bit of work on that. We are on track to save the amount that we agreed in this year, and are absolutely on track to save the amount next year. I'm more than happy to share with you the contract meetings that we're having, which has got all of that information on which we're having monthly with them. So I'm happy to do that and talk that through. We will be doing that. We will be doing that at scrutiny next time.
Liz, your first one.
I just need to add that some of the other councils, our comparator councils, are indeed overspending, and there is information out in the public domain of Dorset Council and Cornwall Council. Wiltshire Council, I believe, doesn't have all its accounts signed off by the external auditors. I think in this new council, I think actually we've done quite well there, having inherited, of course, not just the 5 sets of accounts, but also the pension fund. So I think good progress has been made there. I would have very, very real anxiety about planning future budgets without having the external auditors sign off. And I thank again the audit committee for the good work that they've been doing there, as well as Jason and his team.
Thank you. Councillor Rigby, you've been named as having shouted at you, Councillor Fothergill. So, please, then.
I have no recollection of any such action, but what I would like to share with you is that my favourite magazine landed on my doorstep recently. It's called First, and it's belonging to the Local Government Association, for those of you who don't know. There was an excellent article in there about improving health and care services. And with your indulgence, Chair, I will just quote a brief passage. The LGA has consistently argued that the current social care and health system is unsustainable and will buckle unless we urgently invest to protect health, prevent sickness, and intervene early to minimise the need for costly hospital treatment and care. It's a very good article. I agree with almost everything in it. It was written by a chap called David Fothergill. Well, guess what? The system's buckling. This is what we are now seeing. And so to hear the leader of the opposition try and pin the blame for the difficult situation that this council is in on this administration leads me to wonder whether or not he has an imposter going around making up things on his behalf, because you can't with any integrity hold the views in this article and then at the same time blame the difficult situation this council's in on the administration for the last 18 months.
I'll let you come back briefly, David.
I have been named, so I think I'm excited.
I don't think he named you, but very carefully. But I will allow it. Let's not.
Everybody in this room knows that I argue for funding our adult social care consistently and will continue to do so. And children's social care. And will continue to do so. And everything in that article I stand by. My questions to this council are, it's not just about social care. We lived with those issues for 5 years. We took difficult decisions. I'm just asking, when are you going to start taking difficult decisions and balancing your budget? Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. I've got Dixie next.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's not surprising that political debate has entered this conversation. It's a fraught time for all of us, and it will be a fraught time for our residents. I personally blame the Romans for the model of governance that we have. I think we are definitely doing a whole range of things to address the financial challenge, and I think some of those will be discussed later. For me, it is clear that the model of funding nationally for social care that was once fit for purpose is no longer, because of all the changes that we have. And I just think, wouldn't it really good if councillors of all political colours kind of urged their respective MPs to work on reform, and that councils continued to come together through the LGA and the CCN to try and resolve this and find a different model. Politically, for any party, it's not going to be really popular. This is not going to be a vote winner, and that's why we need to come together on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any further hands, so after Dave got back in the boys' room, I didn't come in, but I was just going through the recommendations that we had. I won't read them again. Do I have a proposer for those recommendations? Councillor Elisha, and I have a second, and Councillor Revell. Can I see those executive league members in favour of those proposals? Thank you very much. That is clearly carried. And we move on to item 7, which is the financial strategy update, and again in this motion.
Thank you, Chair. As I've already introduced the previous paper at length, I will be briefer on this critically important paper. So I'll say again, we now know the scale of challenge. We know the timescale to budget setting in February. We know the complexities of being a new and immature organisation, and we know that we have literally thousands of good people pulling together in the same direction. I think it's fair and helpful to repeat Jason Bourne's comments that all councils are facing in the same direction. They're moving forward in the same direction, but that the starting line is not a straight and even line. I find that extremely helpful in understanding how things are across the whole country. There are some very direct and some very challenging recommendations in this paper. I would like to, if I may, Chair, just give a bit of background on each of those recommendations. And when I get to recommendation D, I would like to propose an amendment. I'll get to that as I get to recommendation D, if that's okay. So on recommendation A, I make the point that this is the first time we have publicly used the term financial emergency. We were previously trying not to cause greater concern for all the staff of the One Council at this stage, but the situation is now too serious for us to avoid the word emergency any longer. On recommendation B, these recommendations are all on page 74, if you don't have them. The letter that was sent by Jason Bourne as 151 officer to DLUC, Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. This letter was published with the Audit Committee papers. That committee met recently and agreed their concern about the changing situation, changing, developing, emerging emergency situation. Grant Thornton's letter mentioned in recommendation C. Grant Thornton's letter as external auditor was also published for the Audit Committee, and that Audit Committee was attended by Barry Morris of Grant Thornton and Duncan Sharkey, our Chief Executive. That in itself tells you how serious the situation is. On recommendation D, this is about approving disposal of commercial investment portfolio. I would like to propose that we have, the recommendation I would like, the amendment I would like to propose is that the Director of Strategic Asset Management works in conjunction with the lead member for Economic Development Planning and Assets, Councillor Ross White. So I'm sorry we missed that from the recommendation. The approval of disposal of the commercial investment portfolio, we take that decision. It's really important because at the moment, our 151 officer is speaking to DLUC on the subject of capitalisation, direction, and the first question the government asks is, do you hold commercial investment? The answer is yes, because all 4 of the district councils across party actually all have portfolios, and so the requirement is that we dispose of those before we consider any further borrowing, and it is now essential to our planning for the future. That is, of course, a programme of work that will be very carefully undertaken by specialist officers with specialist external advice. It is not something that will be hurried. As I tried to explain on the BBC radio interview, the decision is taken on one day. The programme of work runs over a considerable period of time. So on a recommendation, an update report coming forward for the 6th of December. So far, we have seen savings being slow coming forward. Channel sessions have been held. Work streams are now starting to coalesce and focus more on the immense task in the same way as they did on the LGR programme. And Jason Bourne has already given us more information on that. Recommendation F is the report, the review of earmarked reserves, also now coming to the 6th of December executive. That has been delayed. I was originally expecting it to be with us today, but because many of the earmarked reserves are monies that are completely ring-fenced, for instance, from town deals, future high street funds, levelling up, it's absolutely essential that we get that review of earmarked reserves correct, because we need to know from that list what can be repurposed as general fund reserves if and when we need them. We've also here recommendation G, tasking the asset management group with bringing forward asset disposals, including council office rationalisation proposals. That will come forward on the 6th of December. We are moving our meetings around different offices. We all know that with one council and post-COVID and the way home working has developed, that we no longer need as much office space. So we want to get that intent into the public domain, and that is the reason for that recommendation. Recommendation H is to agree for a report on the vision of the Sustainable Somerset Council. So this would be at the highest level of a vision, again on the 6th of December. And we are already hearing about a modern council, which would be smaller in terms of fewer offices, slimmer, and we have already discussed what nobody wishes to discuss, which is the move towards some voluntary redundancies and greater use of automation. So the Leader of Council has already listed those in his answer to a public question. The only alternative to this programme of work, which needs to move at pace, is a section 114 notice. I do not see any other option for Somerset Council. And again, Chair, if I may, I'd like to hand over to Jason Bourne for more detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Local government finance is quite complex, actually. The split between revenue and capital, general fund taxing account, treasury investments, treasury non-investments, VAT, partial exemption on VAT, minimum revenue provision, no depreciation, apart from the HRA. Prudential indicators, general reserves, earmarked reserves, reserves held on behalf of others, unusable reserves, dedicated schools grant, high needs block, just to name a few. But the problem we face actually is really quite simple. Our costs are increasing at a higher rate than our income. Table 1 in the report shows that the total council tax income related to our net budget expenditure is 69%. That is restricted and can only go up by 2.99% next year. Our costs are going up significantly more than that. That, in short, is the problem we face. The way a number of councils are solving the problem is to use reserves. But actually, everybody has different levels of reserves. They are finite. Once you've used them once, they're not available again. So if you have low level of reserves, you will get into trouble, and that dreaded section 114 quicker than those councils that have got high levels of reserves. So outlined in the report, we face a very stark and challenging financial position. The executive approved the financial strategy in July. We have reviewed funding assumptions within that, updated the pressures and the savings, and that's what's set out in this report here. The result of that is that at this stage, we're predicting the budget gap to be 100 million. On page 80, paragraph 40, there's the list of actions being taken to close that budget gap. 22 service challenge sessions have happened between the 18th of October and 3rd of November. They have identified several £1 million worth of savings initially, and further work is being done to develop those. There has been a deep dive into adults and review of the, and again, further savings have been identified as a result of that. We are doing a similar work across children's services. We are reviewing the capital programme, both the existing programme and new bids, with a view to reduce their borrowing costs, hence make revenue savings. Recommendation also covers asset disposals in this report here, and also reviewing the commercial investment property, again on the agenda today. And talks about developing a transformation programme to reshape the council, resize it to be something that's financially sustainable. All those are covered in the recommendations in front of you. Later this week, the Chancellor on the 22nd of November will do his autumn statement. From that, we will understand how much public funding there is available coming towards local government. We won't know the details for our council though. That comes through the finance settlement sometime just before Christmas. That will give us the details of our individual grants and also confirm the council tax referendum limits. We will bring an update to the 6th of December meeting, which will outline progress made in reducing the current £100 million budget gap. I am very confident the number will reduce. However, I do not believe it possible for this will come down to zero, given the key drivers in the budget and how much adult social care, children's social care, the statutory services make up a portion of our budget. It's just not simply possible that we can balance it at this stage. Given our level of reserves and the previous report on the forecast overspend in the current year, there is a very real danger that we can't breach the gap without any government support. We have recently seen the likes of Slough, Croydon, Thurrock and Birmingham issue Section 114 notices. Each one of those councils have had some very specific reasons for doing that. We are now starting to see other councils, like ourselves, I've mentioned the London Borough of Havering, warning of actually the reason why we might issue a Section 114 is we simply do not have enough money to run our services. I have written to a copy of the letter is in the appendix to this report, and the Chief Executive and I are meeting with them later this month to discuss things further. There is an exceptional financial support package available. A number of councils, such as the 2 new unitaries in Cumbria this year, have already accessed those. By doing that, you can avoid a Section 114. So I'm not painting a rosy picture for you, I'm afraid, but it is the state we find ourselves in. As I said earlier, I believe the report coming to you in December will show significant progress against that gap, but it will still be a sizable gap.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Mr. Vaughan. Am I seeing any comments, questions from leader associate members, please? And got Ben and Ross. Ross first.
Just the procedural thing. I did have a question against this item, public question. It was the one which I think was taken earlier, and that is the question about disposal of assets and specifically railway assets. I'm quite happy to take it later, whatever it's with this.
My apologies, I didn't move those questions up to the agenda because they cover both of those items. Do you want? Just trying to think whether to give it now or whether to give it subsequently.
I'm quite happy to put something in writing.
Yeah, I think at this stage, the moment has passed, if you could reply to that question in writing.
Yeah.
And my apologies for changing the order of proceedings in the name sheet. So I didn't realise it had that complication. My apologies. Councillor Smith Roberts, Beth.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Liz and Jason. And I think, Jason, you paint, if I've understood correctly, about how the challenges that we face are particular national and in relation to adult and children's services and the pressure that we're facing and the underfunding of that, because we've had politics play out in the previous item about what would we do now or what would we do differently, but we're actually hearing that that's affecting multiple councils, and it's not just about how this administration isn't doing something, because we are doing that. That's why this agenda item is here in front of us. We had a 17-point plan as to how we're going to tackle it. However, like my household, not my household budget, but like household budget, if income doesn't match expenditure, then you need to do something about it, and we are trying that. However, our costs are constantly going up, and I think that we have a duty, which we are doing, to tackle it, but also for the residents to understand exactly where we spend our money and exactly where does the cost go, so that they understand that adult and children in particular statutory services. So I think we've got a comms message that we need to do around this and that we're working on. My actual question is around section 114. Again, new territory for a lot of us. I think we, like you said, perhaps we've nearly been there before as a county. But is my understanding correct that if a section 114 were to be served, and we're not saying that that's going to happen now, but we have people from outside of Somerset come in and determine what life looks like for Somerset, because commissioners come in, but also we have to pay them a significant amount per day to come in and tell us what Somerset should look like, because I think that that is also a point that people need to be aware of, if my understanding is correct. So isn't it right that we all work together to try and get what's best for Somerset residents, to demonstrate where their money goes and actually what is statutory? And that's what we're doing through this paper, and we are all working hard despite the pressures that staff are facing and the uncertainty that is there.
It would be a really poor day for Somerset to have to pay government commissioners £1,200 a day each, plus expenses to come to Somerset, and we would still be in place. I've had people ask me whether parish councils would be able to set their budget. Councils always have to set their budget. This is not like businesses going bankrupt. Councils continue their work because they have to, because people depend on it. The last thing we want to do is paying people from outside of the county who don't have local knowledge, who don't have commitment to all those prevention agenda facilities and services that we know are so important to so many people. We know that other councils are not in the same place at the same time because their council tax income is so much higher. So on page 83 of your report, you'll see Dorset's, another local unitary council. So if we charge the same as them, Dorset have 53.4 million per annum additional income. Cornwall has 32.3 per annum additional income. Wiltshire, which has been referenced a couple of times, has 11.5 million per annum additional income. So if we get commissioners coming in to Somerset, we were to have commissioners come in, they would look at both sides of the budget, as you have rightly said, in a household budget or a budget of this scale. The really big issues come when your income is restricted and your expenditure is going up. If you can manage just one side of the scale, you can find a way through it. So I know from my working life, when you're hit on both sides of the budget and you don't have the ability to increase your income, and we do know that the household budgets are really stretched at the moment, and your expenditure keeps going up, we know now how big the scale of that challenge is. So there are lots of really interesting tables on this paper that I would urge all members to read. And perhaps those of us, when we go out to our parish councils, we need to make this clear as well about how Somerset is different from other unitaries in the southwest. I'm not sure that I've answered the question, responded to Federica's points fully, but I hope that's helped a bit.
Thank you. Looking around for any other league members or associate league members, and I've got Councillor Martin Tessa. Good morning.
Oh, you should.
I'm actually here. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. I just wanted to reflect briefly on the challenges in children's social care, which I know we've rehearsed endlessly. But as you're aware, I think we now know that we've got 299 statutory responsibilities, and we've got, the overspend that there is in the whole children, families and education arena is a reflection of the demand and complexity and a broken care market. And I'm just about to send all of you a note that was forwarded to me, which explains that another council in the country is paying £85,000 a week for care for one child. Now, we're jolly lucky, we're not in that place, but I was talking to colleagues earlier yesterday about one child who we have had to make arrangements for in the unregulated care market, and that's costing £25,000 a week. Now, that clearly isn't going to go on for a year, but actually what we do know is that if you scale that up, which we won't need to, that's £1,300,000 a year. So the care market is extraordinary, and there was a recent CCM, County Councils Network, and the Society of County Treasurers report, which explores the overspend in children's services, and it sets out all the financial pressures in all of the county and large unitary councils, whereby we know that there are increasing levels of need and the impact of the broken care market, and that's what the broken care market looks like in financial terms, I'm afraid. And for these young people who we have a duty to care for, we have to make sure that we do our very best. And as you all know, that's a reflection of both the national position, but also this county's position. And we are constantly, continually trying to reduce that overspend by looking at every single thing we do, every penny we spend. And as our teams will know, Claire and I work with teams who are asked to consider smaller and smaller amounts of money. So we're looking at every single thing we spend, and that's quite right. But it is a broken market and increasing levels of complexity, and the demand is getting higher and higher and higher, as you'll know on national media. Thank you.
Thank you. Just looking around the table for any last contributions. Oh, comment. Councillor Wakefield, yes, Andrew.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that having listened to the debate this morning and what's been said, I see a very serious council looking at this very serious. We have been from day one. This is a really complex project to bring these councils together to get the budgets aligned, to look in and see, look under every stone and see what's under there. Used to be a big hole, unfortunately. I think the business case that was made for unitary was made on various assumptions, which unfortunately proved not to be correct. Now, you obviously do have to make assumptions in a business case, and I would quite like Jason just to respond to that, because it is unfortunate that they are not correct, have not proved to be correct. We did take some of the so-called benefits last year in our budget, but we did expect, I think, more reserves, with the business case expected more reserves from the districts perhaps, and, you know, just a different financial background. And the financial background has changed markedly. I just want to say again, I see a serious group of councillors working incredibly hard to deal with this. And if the opposition don't think we've declared an emergency soon enough, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think you need to work as hard as you can to avoid it. If it becomes necessary, you have to say that's where you are. And I commend our councillors for doing it.
Thank you, wise words indeed. On top, Heather Clearer wants to speak, I can't see you, Brown Dance. Oh, right, okay, thank you. Jason, you were asked a question in the middle of that.
Yeah, I'm just looking across the table because Alan Jones might want to go in on the business case per se. Just in general terms, the business case was put together a number of years ago. I think in terms of, are there savings by bringing 5 organisations together? Well, you realise that the answer is undoubtedly yes. I think what's happened is the finances around all councils in the country have just been dramatically impacted over the last couple of years, rising inflation, interest rates, demand following COVID, all of those things that Councillor Lyshan said earlier actually. So it's not the business case per se, it's the circumstances we're operating. I don't know what Jones wants to answer.
Through you, Chair, to comment really, the business case was really clear at the time in terms of the detail, the financial savings that were there. They were considered part of the budget and the programme of work continues to be able to deliver those activities. But as Councillor Lyshan has already stated, the landscape in which the business case was drafted and prepared and approved has significantly changed. And as part of that as well, we need to consider the size of the organisation in order to continue to deliver a sustainable council for the future. At which point the parameters of the business case need to be reflected on, and do we need to go further, faster, to make sure that we're able to be more sustainable and envisaged within the business case. So the essence of those statements that are there are still being delivered, but the ability then to deliver them at the pace required, given the changing financial circumstances which you set out, is something that needs to be considered, and it is being considered as we speak.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I followed this debate with interest over the last few years, and I recall that the case for Unitary suggested that there would be £18.4 million worth of savings over a period of 2 years. My understanding is that 6 months in, we've got close to half of that, and there's more work to do to continue to deliver the rest of it. The problem is that there was no detail that came with that. We conducted a thorough search at County Hall, and we can't find how that 18.4 million actually came about. It seems to be a number plucked out of the air. There's no detail other than a bunch of copies as to where that might be found. We will endeavour to make all the savings that we possibly can through this transition period. But let's be honest, if we deliver all 18.4 million of what was proposed, it doesn't touch the sides of the booming cost of adult social care. So we'll continue to be able to deliver that. But let's not kid ourselves that delivering the full business case of Unitary savings is going to fix this problem on its own.
Okay, I concur with that. Just looking, no other comments from the members of the social league members. Councillor Fosdill, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very specific question relating to the papers, which we're supposed to be debating. The question relates to page 100, which talks about the review of the school transport. And I'd just like to question the up-to-date information you're currently supposed to be debating. And that says in that as an update, this is the update at the end of September 2023, that there will be a challenge session completed by late August. The session will be shaped around revised specified documentation, and it does say that they will then be reported back. So the end of August was 2 months ago.
I just wonder if by the end of September, we'd actually heard any output from that Chelmsford session.
Councillor Desmond, one second.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, right, that's wrong, my microphone, so there we are. Thank you very much indeed for your question. There have been several meetings and we have a transport board that has been set up. We've got discussions that are going on, there's some project work going on, and I'm working with Mike Rigby and his officers along with Claire and our officers and the SEND team and various others, the fusion team, to make sure that we actually focus right down on this. I have to say that my fear is that the budget in the past had been just estimated and we found very difficult situations. And I know I could give an example, and that is that there is, we were given a quote just 2 months ago, probably in August actually, where a 9-minute journey back and 9-minute journey forth to school for one young person to attend a school. The quote that was given to us by the organisation that was approached, the organisations, those who, the one quote that we got was for £40,000 a year. That was the option that we had. So we are looking at absolutely everything that we can possibly do to change and intervene in that market and look at things looking at things in a different way. And Mike and I will carry on working with that with David Carter, Claire Winter, Bob Hart, and everybody else is involved. Thank you.
My question really was about having up-to-date information in these reports that we could debate, and I'm sure lots of good work is going on in there. Did say the work will be finished by the end of August and this report at the end of September. The question is, what was the outcome of that work? That was all I'm asking really. Could we have up-to-date reports when they're presented?
I'll make absolutely certain that you're updated as far as we can get. Thank you. It is ongoing work and it will carry on.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions, Councillor. Councillor Frederick, are you still on the speak? Okay, so just double check online. I don't think I saw any hands up online, so we've included the speakers on this item. So we have an amendment to item with recommendation D. Could you just read the amendment for us again, please?
So in recommendation D, page 74, where it says Director of Strategic Asset Management, the amendment is to add in works in conjunction with the lead member for Economic Development Planning and Assets, Councillor Ross White. So I would like to propose that amendment, please.
Thank you. Do I see a seconder for that amendment, please? Councillor Lichard. All those in favour of the amendment, please show. All those against, that's the amendment clearly carried. Councillor Layton and her introduction, give read through all the recommendations A to G, H. Not proposing to read through them again. Are we all happy with the recommendations as they are? Can I see those lead members? Can I see a proposal second first of all? Proposed by Councillor Layton, seconded by Councillor Munt. All those lead members in favour, please. All those against, that's clearly carried. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. We now move on to item 8, which is the proposed formation of a property and investments executive subcommittee, and I'd like to hand over to our monitoring officer, David Clark, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a proposal to create a subcommittee of the executive to focus primarily on the property and investments. So this allows the subcommittee to be more agile and to respond quickly and speedily to any items that arise in respect of the property and assets portfolio that we've There's been discussed already at this meeting that all the councils have established and inherited in light of the financial challenges that this council faces, and has been well discussed and publicised here today. It's recommended that this subcommittee is established in order to make those decisions quickly and generally. Full details of terms of reference and membership are within the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Can we see any comments or questions on this, Councillor White first?
Thank you. I welcome this paper. I'd just like to remind colleagues that we inherited a situation where a lot of decisions around property were being made as part of non-key decisions and being made by an individual. And what we're trying to do here is make sure that it is collective wisdom and a collective group on the executive, and also in a transparent way where possible. And therefore, I very much welcome this formal executive subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other contributions from sector members, associate members? Councillor Baker, please.
Yes, I think that's too. I think it's the right way forward. And I think it should be made clear that when we come to dispose of these assets, which we've now made the decision previously to do, and this will be a planned disposal over time to get best value. This is not anything other than that, but it is something that we've agreed to do. And I think that this committee will be able to get on with that as quickly as it's able to do so. But I think people should realise that this is something we will do in a planned way.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other contributions, just checking online. No contributions online. Are there any from anybody else in the room? Councillor Nicholson, Clay Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, yes, I now recognise these. Yes, my question is, I take the point of what you're trying to do. My question is, it's a hugely technical matter. It's a hugely complicated matter. Does the subcommittee have all the skills and experience that it needs? Would it be better to co-opt some professional advice onto that committee?
I believe professional advice come from officers. Like Councillor Ross White has indicated the response. I think Councillor Lysholm has additional information as well.
Yeah. If you look at the previous papers, you'll note that we referred to disposal of assets using external professional help. And one of these individuals will come with officers to the committee and provide the guidance and also the understanding of the commercial market. The decision to have an executive committee, by very definition, has to be not co-opted people, but actually members of the exec.
If I might come back, yes, you talk about having a co-opted member already. It would be non-voting. That's what I would understand a co-opted member would be. It was just whether rather than having ad hoc advice, it would be helpful to build a relationship with people who actually know that field and know us and know the authority. It may not be something that you're talking. It's merely a question of whether to make sure that it really works best possible.
That's the last.
Thank you. This council does have the benefit of 3 specialist officers already who have worked in predecessor councils, and recommendation D on our previous paper, where we said delegates the appointment of external agents, which is where I've replaced the amendment, so that the Director of Strategic Asset Management is working in conjunction with Councillor White on the appointment of those agents. So that is clearly external professional agents. And I know that is how previous district councils worked. So I can remember attending meetings at Mendon, and there were there were the requisite number of specialist external agents in the room. And since this paper was published, I've had emails and phone calls from agents all over the country who I didn't even know existed. And I've made the point to every one of them that the decision is made on one day, the programme of work of appointing agents and then moving forward with disposals is a long programme of work and needs to be done extremely carefully. So I haven't had any answers for any of them, but I have forwarded their emails to the specialist officers already working in this council, and they've been contacted too. Thank you.
Yeah, so similarly in Central District Council, I was just looking back and forward for Mark Eady online or in the room, but I can't see him. But I'm sure he would confirm this similar approach taken with commercial investments at Central District Council as well. I'm sure other councils have similar arrangements. Anybody else got anything to add on that point or any other points in the room? Any other questions? No, in which case we'll come to the recommendation. The recommendation is that the executive is recommended to note and approve the decision of the Leader of Council to establish a property and investments executive subcommittee with terms of reference set out in Appendix 1 with effect on the 9th of November 2023, so tomorrow. Do I see a proposer for that, please? Councillor Elisha, seconded Councillor White. All those members in favour, please. Those against, that's clearly carried, which moves us on to item 9. And I believe item 9 is where we have a speaker, and I'd like to welcome Mr. David Mears, Town Clerk of Bridgewater Town Council, to speak.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm David Mears, Town Clerk at Bridgewater Town Council. I'm also here representing the Somerset branch of the Society of Local Council Clerks. We're going to talk to you about the policy that has been released about disposal of assets within our community, but clearly this extends to outside Somerset, which we don't particularly have an interest in. It's by chance that I don't have a social life, and then one evening last week I was looking on your website and I came across this policy. This policy, a bit of an understatement, has caused a significant concern within the local council sector. When I say local council, I mean town, city and parish councils. Granted, your officers, we're very grateful to Ollie and to Alan for listening to us, and there has been a version 7 that has been released. However, it's taken a considerable amount of time, clearly, from your officers, but also within our sector as well, and it's also caused intervention from the Society Local Council Clerks Chief Executive and also Association of Local Councils. And I just wish to remind executive members here, but other officers as well, that we have built a very, very strong relationship with Somerset Council over the last couple of years, and we hold bi-weekly meetings with Alan's team and with Sarah Skirton, and it is really a productive relationship, and we relish that, and I hope you relish that too. But to continue that productive relationship, we do need to have a two-way conversation. We do need to have recognition, actually, that we're a key partner, not just a stakeholder, but a key partner to Somerset Council. You've got significant financial pressures, and we can help with those pressures. But still, the amendments in this policy do not go far enough. It is down to the discretion of officers and also local members, whether they feel it's appropriate for town and parish councils to be consulted on asset disposals. We have knowledge of assets and services within our community that you may not necessarily have. And we also need to have consultation from an early outset where we may be able to help support you in that disposal in terms of knowledge that may be enhancing the value, but also there may be parcels of land that we may have a shared interest in where we can actually improve sort of biodiversity in our areas, social economic benefits as well. And I think the key thing is with page 13, with that quite significant amendment in there. Again, that relationship with local members is going to be absolutely critical. And that isn't shared across the whole of the county. There are some councils that do not engage, or I say local councils, do not engage with divisional unitary members, but also it's going to be down to discretion of officers as well, where some of us have excellent officer relationships. Some councils do not. So we would like to see something like glossary, some parameters actually of where a definition of where it's appropriate. That makes sense, okay? But again, we really do appreciate the engagement with the Somerset Council, and we want to continue to grow that moving forward. So if you could please take on board our observations, please.
Thank you, David, for your very helpful contribution. I'm really pleased to hear that dialogue is ongoing. We do very much see this as a partnership and collaboration between the city, town and parish council sector, and we do thank you for drawing this to our attention. And I can only give my amazement that Anglican Bridgewater has a dull social life. The Bridgewater have so much to offer, particularly this time of year. Anyway, Ros.
Thank you, everyone. And just to remind colleagues in the room, you will have seen a late version of this paper, which has been distributed to everyone, including our colleagues, the town clerk colleagues. Thank you, David, for the very helpful questions and further emails which the executive and relevant officers have considered. Following feedback from a number of the town clerk colleagues over the last few days, we have amended the original decision and the policy wording to clarify that a framework for asset and service devolution will be built forward over within hopefully early 2024 to provide supplementary guidance on how city, town and parish councils can assist with some of the financial pressures to protect service delivery. The amended policy before the committee today clarifies the city, town and parish councils' importance and that they are important strategic partners for this authority, and how discussions on asset disposals will be held with individual local councils as appropriate. I think you are aware, and you should have been since you sat with us this morning, about the extreme pressure this council's under, and therefore we're moving things forward as rapidly as we can. So hence the policy today of disposal of assets and setting up an executive subcommittee, because it is a much broader thing than just assets within Somerset. And I apologise that you didn't get the asset and service devolution policy to you first of all, and I think that would have clarified how we're going to be in discussions for quite some time. We've already spent 2 years working with you. We, I hope, continue to do that. The policy we have currently dates back to 2014. And this is a policy we inherited, and we're very conscious that there wasn't an awful lot of scrutiny or sharing of decision making, and we have now formalised it very clearly and very transparently in this policy. And I think we just need to recognise that collective decision making for appropriate executive political oversight is really important. And all disposals will go through both the internal process, making sure that any asset which we believe is surplus to requirement is first of all considered by every single department within the county. And that is quite considerable now as we've moved both district services as well as county services together. I think it also is really important that we recognise that we are really working hard to be open and transparent and engaging, both with local councillors who are representatives of the community. I'm saddened to hear that you don't feel all parish councils have a relationship with local councillors, and can I just suggest that both councillors and parishes really strengthen that relationship? It's really important in a council which covers the whole of Somerset County that we do have a strong relationship. I know that members of Theo's team and other individuals within the council have worked hard to build those relationships, and we will continue to do so. I also note that we need to think about how we discuss things further. with our colleagues. But for the moment, I think what we've got is a really good compromise. It is a very clear and transparent policy in front of us, and we'll work on that to actually ensure that we get the very best of local knowledge. First of all, engaging with our local councillors across the piece, because this is not just about Somerset, this is actually about the entire asset disposal, and we need to recognise that we're working in a very challenging commercial market, and we need to do it in a way which we feel we can give officers a degree, a very limited degree, I must admit, but a degree of discretion as to how we actually engage with the commercial market. But that doesn't undermine the overarching principle that we do work with our local government colleagues across the whole of Somerset, and also with all ward members. So I think on balance, we've got something is really robust, and I think is worth working with. This has been discussed at length 3 times by the executive. It's gone through the scrutiny process, and so I think we've now got a policy which I'm very happy to recommend. I'm not sure there is much more to add to this, but unless the officers want to add anything specific. I looked all of them. No, I think at this stage we'll leave it at that, but very happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the answer. I believe that was an introduction to the item as well. Am I seeing any other league members or associate league members who wish to comment? Councillor Buffett. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to add just a few comments on the absolute essential nature of our relationship with the city, town and parish council sector, which we will be doing everything to foster and develop over the coming months. Rod is absolutely right that the asset and service devolution framework is a really vital piece of work for that, and will cover a lot of the areas where assets may, and services, but assets on this particular instance may be developed to city, town and parish, devolved to the city, town and parish councils. And we are really keen to ensure that there's a strong voice for the sector within. I'm hoping to be able to bring that forward to the January executive, but I hope to be able to have some significant consultation and discussions with city and parish councils before that sort of hoping to have a draft of that out early. I think that is the area where much of this will more appropriately fit, and obviously because of the council's other pressing needs, the need to have to be able to deal with some of these processes at speed means that making any more of a commitment on a sort of blanket basis than it is in the newly revised and in my view very much strengthened policy is probably not practical. We will do everything we can to ensure that we have that continuing dialogue, because ultimately it's absolutely essential, both Somerset Council, City Town and Parish Councils, that we are able to deliver the aspirations of our community.
Thank you, Theo. I'm not seeing any other league members or associate league members wishing to speak. I'll go to Faith Purbrick next. I'm voting online, but he's oh, okay. No, so I'll take Councillor Purbrick, and if Councillor Boyden doesn't want to come back, we'll move on to Rose Greenwood.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you also to David. He's done some amazing work in this area over the last 4 years now, and I'm really pleased to see that there's been a reaction to the comments that came in from David and our local community into the guide. I've got a few questions around capacity, council asset awareness, and also our community. I think a lot of the community stuff has been covered by David, but I asked about a year ago what we would do around the small asset disposal that didn't come into the asset and service devolution elements of the business case that everybody's talked about so much this morning. So I'm really glad to see this coming forward, but the answer I got, when I asked about it 6 months, a year ago, was there were capacity issues, and we know there's a lot of work going on within the council. We know that there's a lot that our officers have got to get their heads around and deal with financial pressures, as well as transformation and transition. So specifically around legal and property requirements, is the team that is dealing with this already transformed? Are there people in these roles who are going to be staying in them, or is that transformation team yet to come? And are we confident that internal capacity that I read about in the paper is there? Or are we envisaging that we are going to look to external resources or a change in this when that restructure has happened? In terms of the actual asset awareness, I recognise the fact that there's a number of references to things being confidential, maybe coming to the parish councils and the local members, but there are other community groups who may want to register community assets of community value. Are we confident that our communities are aware of what the council owns so that they can be ready to register those in case they need to in order to comply with this policy? And I suppose then the wider thing is on that community engagement to make sure it's not just our towns and parishes and city councils, but some of our volunteering community groups who might want to get involved, as they successfully have with assets in other ways. That they know what we own, because certainly I've had people say, oh, who owns that? And I don't think I'm finding.
Thanks. The difficulty sometimes is who owns that and nobody, which is even more frustrating. Anyway, that's what's likely to be.
Thank you. 3 things. First of all, every council is required and has done so at the district level and at the county level, have a list of all the assets, and these are online and available to both the public and to councillors. And so there should be no issue that people don't know what is owned. Secondly, without particularly wanting to promote a government body, I would say that you can actually go online and have a look at the land registry, and you can get an indication as to whether some land is in no or not, and that can be done again by individual organisations and as well as members of the public and indeed councillors. I think the broader piece, I think what the councillor is asking is, do we have enough resource to actually manage the demands? And the question will always be a challenging one, because when you're looking at something, you're looking at a range of resources, as I think you probably realise, around the legal team, professional surveyors, etc. And I think inevitably we never have enough. I think we do need to recognise that this council, as you've heard earlier, is financially quite considerably constrained. And so we will have to prioritise what we can do. And the priority for us at the moment is to support our financial position. And we just need to make sure that the single who owns this particular piece of footpath may take 7 days to respond to, rather than having an immediate response, which many in the property team have provided in the past. And we just need to be mindful of resources going forward, because undoubtedly this is an area under considerable pressure.
I'll briefly come back there.
Just briefly, I've been made aware of a number of registers that aren't correct, so perhaps looked at how we're doing that. There's something that's about 2 years out of date that somebody involved will figure out and get the details of that. But I think it's also about managing expectations and something out to the public. I think it was Federica said about communication, something out to the public saying this is going on. If there's something in your area that you think is of interest, look, because the last thing you want is for people to be coming back to you in some time, then nobody told me. And I think in terms of managing expectations, if you say to people, this inquiry is going to take this long, this inquiry is going to take that long, which I think we do in our customer service standards anyway, then it's again pointing people to that so that they do understand.
Thank you. We do attempt to inform, and part of the process, which you can see within the paper, is very early days consultation with ward members or divisional members, because at the end of the day, they should hold the local knowledge in the first instance, but it doesn't mean to say that maybe one of the sessions we need to do through the clerk's fortnightly update is to encourage people to communicate locally about the availability of land registry as the first point of call, though I do recognise that Somerset was the last area in the country to actually have that as a legal requirement. So if a transaction predates 1994, I think it may not be on that, so it may be out of date. And undoubtedly, this will always go out of date from the day they get put on the website, and we'll try very hard, but it does take time to get updates on these. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to online, we've got Councillor Rosemary Woods. Good morning, Rosemary. In fact, it's good afternoon. My apologies. Calling watch it. You are muted at the moment.
Good morning. I wondered if you could encourage the local community networks to discuss this assets problem, because I know that our own community network is very strong. I have 2 in my division, but there are people that don't understand the need for the local community networks. And I felt if this was put to them, this would be an ideal opportunity to get that feedback. So how do you feel about that?
Okay, I'm just looking across to Theo or Ros. Provide an answer.
Well, Ros may wish to chip in as well, but obviously it's up to our local community networks to discuss pretty much anything that they want. So if it's something that your LCN or any LCN wants to discuss, either now or in light of the forthcoming asset and service devolution framework, they're free to do so, and we'll happily facilitate that.
Thank you, Theo. David, did you want to come in?
At the end.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And Councillor Adam Boyden. We've gone from watch it to Froome. It seems how wonderful this technology is sat here in the Oval.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Chair, and thanks for this. I was just keen to say that it's really important to consult parish, town, city councils and in assets disposal, even if the intention isn't to devolve those assets to those councils, because they know their areas as well as we do, sometimes better, and are a very important element in the local government framework. And of course, so I agree with the request by the previous speaker, but I've also been pointed out that the update dated yesterday to the policy does now include more references to the need to consult and inform and notify city, parish and town councils at a couple of stages in the process. So thank you very much for including that. And I note it's not necessarily guaranteed though, because it will be at the discretion of officers whether to consult those councils. So it's up to local members to request that, and it's up to officers to allow that, perhaps. Will it depend on whether those parish councils have agreed to the code of conduct, which guarantees confidentiality in the process? And would it be normally the case that they would be now involved at an early stage before a decision, as well as being notified of a decision? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. And I'm looking forward to respond. I think Ros is going to take that one.
Thank you, Evan. Yes, the policy has been significantly changed, and you should see the latest version, which will identify that, yes, we will have discussions when appropriate with parish councils. This is a policy designed to cover the range of assets we have, so both commercial as well as locally held ones. I think, as with all things, we just need to be mindful about how we are managing this. And I'm not aware that there is any parish council code of conduct, which means that there is where people are asked to respect confidentiality and it's retained. I think it's only the members of the council, but it doesn't mean to say that we don't at the appropriate time with the appropriate information have those discussions. And I think anyway, a lot of this will be preempted when we have the framework for the new service and asset devolution, which is 2-3 months away, and they will then clarify how we discuss things with parish councils going forward.
Okay, I hope that gives you reassurance and the tricksy areas around that lie around this. I think the underlying philosophy though still remains, we want to work with our partners as whenever we can. I've got a question. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Can I just make a quick point that the process map which you're approving is now out of date with the policy because it doesn't refer to the parish, city and town councils. So if we can update the policy, the process map to reflect that, that would be useful, I think. I believe.
Okay, thank you for that point. I've got colleagues flicking through paper at the moment. I think we'll just give us a moment to reflect on whether we can do that instantly or we'll just come back to that in the fullness of time. So do take that on board. I've got. Okay, so the advice from the chief executive is it's not part of the policy, so that it can be amended fairly easily as a drafting amendment in effect. So thanks for alerting us to that. Okay, Francis Nicholson, you look perplexed.
Mr. Chairman, I hope just turn it off instead of turning it on. Mr. Chairman, I hope you will indulge me just for a second. As a member of the Standards Committee, we have been working very hard with city, town and parish councils so that as many of them as possible, and most of them have done this, adopt the same code of conduct as us. And I would not wish anything said in this meeting to get in the way of that work or to confuse city, town and parish councils. The other thing I would say is I was a little bit surprised to see in the papers that it was necessary to remind members that they're bound by code of conduct.
I think we should all be constantly reminded of such things. But yes, indeed. And we were aware that the vast majority, but not all, are signed up there. So that's where there has to be, I think wiggle room is the appropriate phrase there, but the point's well made. Not seeing any other speakers online or in the room. So we have, oh, sorry, David, you were going to come in. I was just reaching for the amended, changed, reformed proposal. So you could just advise, please.
Thank you, Chair. It was just listening to the debate today and in recognition of the essential relationship with both town and parish councils and the voluntary sector, and also to reflect the ongoing and dynamic conversation that we'll be having around this area and the commitment that we've made to continued engagement. I'd like to suggest a further recommendation is introduced that provides delegation to the appropriate service director for strategic asset management in consultation with the lead member for economic development, planning and assets to make any minor amendments to this policy going on rather than having to bring it back to the executive.
Okay, so we've got an updated recommendation and a suggested amendment to the updated recommendation. Do I have a vote for the suggested amendment from Mr. Clark? Councillor Ross-White, do we have a second? Councillor Buck-Phillips. All those in favour of the amendment, please show. All those against the amendment, that's clearly carried. And so our updated recommendation is the approval of the policy for disposal of assets, and B, to note the subsequent framework of service and asset devolution will provide further supplemental guidance covering the devolution of assets to city, town and parish councils and delegation of the service director as per Mr. Park's suggested amendment that we have already carried. All those in favour of the substantive I have a proposal, secondly, yes. Can I have a proposal from Councillor Roswhite? Can I second it from Councillor Buckford? All those in favour of the substantive recommendation and all those against, thank you very much. Clearly carried. And we are on to item 10. Mr. Mears will be delighted to see that there are celebrations in Bridgewater, a whole mile of them, which we are delighted to see. Can I just remind members that the main report of this is not confidential, and there are reporting appendices that do contain exempt information and are marked confidential, not for publication at any point if members wish to discuss the information in those confidential appendices, then we will need to pass a resolution to go into private sessions to exclude the press and public. So if members are able not to go into the confidential items, we won't have to do that. Councillor Roswhite, do you want to introduce this item, please?
Thank you. Subject has two town council deals on the table, and most of the work in both the town councils are working with local organisations, and they're the ones who are responsible for the procurement of that, overseen by Somerset Council as being the overarching authority. However, on this occasion, because the money being spent is actually going to be carried out by ourselves and is of significant value, we brought it here today. And it is a project which is fully funded by the government through the town deal. We do fully recognise that there is no additional monies to be had to support this, and that if when we go through the procurement process, we find that we cannot deliver, then there are three things which happen. One is we look again and attempt to de-scope the exercise, or we value engineer. And the third option, of course, is always to go back to the government and say we can't deliver against this particular item and return the money. And I'm sure that people recognise that is very much the last thing. These schemes are a once in a lifetime opportunity for the towns of Somerset. And really, we need to really ensure best endeavours to actually deliver the spirit and the nature of this scheme. This scheme is looking at the public realm, and it's improving it from the docks and the railways and the railway station into the town centre. And it is really a uplifting of the town centre. And it works alongside a number of other projects being run by local communities, and are really moving forward with pace and with imagination, and are going to be a great overall project for the town. So the one in front of you is about awarding a contract for the Celebration Mile, and it is a celebration for Bridgewater. And any of you who attended any of the celebrations for Carnival over the last week will recognise just how important the public realm is for a number of events. So we have a paper in front of us to approve the process around the awarding of a construction contract for the public realm work.
Thank you very much, Ross. Just to, don't mean to be clear, we may have slightly misspoken and talking about town council deal. It's a town deal and it's governed by town deal boards. The town council, as does this authority, sends representatives to that. And as I keep pointing out, the Bridgewater town deal boards, other town councils are available. The sizable proportion of Burton Town is actually in the Bridgewater town deal area.
Thank you, my apologies, I did misspeak on that one, but it is an important thing for Bridgewater and the surrounding communities, because it's quite right. the 11 projects of the deal are really quite significant.
Thank you, and it's my great pleasure to welcome Stuart. Stuart, would you like to present it, please?
Thank you, Leila. Good afternoon, members. Yes, thank you, Councillor White, for the introduction there, and that's very comprehensive. I've been to see you twice now, once last week, once earlier this week, and I gave you a quick snapshot of the situation with the procurement, where we had 2 bids received, one low price, low quality, one higher price, higher quality, and unfortunately beyond budget. So the report is essentially, as Councillor White says, in front of you today to give us a delegation for Councillor White in consultation with my Service Director, Paul Gibson, to enter into discussions with the identified preferred contractor. And following the quick snapshot of the numbers that we previously discussed, I met with the design team again yesterday, and we were able to look at the finer detail of the numbers, and we've made significant inroads into them. We've got savings in areas such as the Broadway Eastover Junction, where traffic signal upgrades have been already completed, and we've worked with the highways team in doing that. Previously, we were looking to strip out a sacrificial layer, decided that's not a good idea. It's a waste of money. It wouldn't be a good look to the public. Why you dig it up again would be the question. So that's a saving in that area. Councillor White, in fact, has made a suggestion that the area in front of the former hospital, which is the Health and Social Care Academy, should be delayed until the Health and Social Care project, which is a levelling up project, catches up slightly. We're hoping that we're going to run in parallel, but the hospital project is slightly behind. So we'll put that to one side and strip that out of costs and then bring it back in at the appropriate time. All in all, I feel that we're in a good place to enter into discussions with the preferred contractor. We'll be able to look at their prelims and their overheads, plus any other suggestions that they may have, and they have indicated they have further savings. I don't want to say value engineering, because it sort of suggests that quality is impacted upon, and that's not what we're about. And I think, and we've also got a good healthy contingency in the numbers which you've seen before. The work overall is pragmatic. There's no frippery, if I can use that word. It's a simple raising of the quality in the town centre and the urban realm. Essentially, it's better accessibility for pedestrians and cyclists, creating a better trading environment for the businesses. It's providing the conditions for the town centre offer to match the expectations of the major investors already in the area and those to come. The scheme does not exclude cars from the area. It better controls the movement of vehicles through the area by reordering the system. Detailed modelling has examined all of the options that were on the table in that respect, and the preferred solution shows while journeys there will be an impact, but it will be a minimal impact, broadly resulting in 30-second delays on other junctions, which are further mitigated by improvements to those junctions which are in programme and ready for delivery themselves. The scheme has been long in the making. We've had extensive consultation undertaken. We've had approvals from council and executive and former district at very different stages all the way through. We've had support from the town council. We've had planning applications submitted, consulted and approved. So finally, I'm very hopeful that we will have underspend on the project, the work that we've been doing, and I can then begin to think about directing that into other areas which perhaps we've had to scale back on and deliver elements of those in slightly different ways. So this will be a focus on skills, employment, business startups and improvements of business practices for businesses that are already in the area. I'm also thinking that we can prepare further design options or briefs for the next section of Celebration Mile, which is the St John Street section running down to the railway station, and have that ready for whatever the next funding pot might be and where that might come from. That's it, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stuart. I'm looking around the table for any questions. Councillor Liz Lighting.
Thank you. It's not just social care that's changed over the last 4 years as we've gone through COVID. It's the way we've worked on the town deals too, and it's been fantastic work. So I've been involved in the Glastonbury town deal since December 19, which seems like a lifetime ago. And I just want to do two things. One is to pay tribute to the officers who've been working on all of those projects, because keeping the government happy with all that money is quite a significant undertaking, and it absolutely has to be done correctly. And the other one is just to acknowledge that because the town deal boards have many partners and are chaired by somebody from local business, there isn't always as much information coming out to local members as there would be if projects were run in different ways. So just wanted to make that point, if I may, Chair, that we need to make sure that local members are informed, particularly when they are council projects. I think that's even more important. But thank you very much, and we have great faith in you to deliver this project and deliver it both well and within budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't particularly detect a question there. I was going to go on to members online, and I noticed we got Lee Revan who popped me an email on this item earlier. Lee, do you want to come in?
Thank you for the opportunity, Chair, but I'm happy for you to read it out. I'm currently on a train, just about to get off.
My apologies, which means I will have to actually find the email in order to read it out. The gist was around.
Chair, if it makes it easier, Chair, I'm happy to support the comments from the previous speaker, Liz Lasham, Councillor Lasham. I've summarised my points.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that the point was around the involvement of local members in this decision. There are 4 local members who form part of the route of this project because it crosses a boundary. We do have a 10 local councillor protocol. It may be we could, I certainly have a significant number of developments in my patch. I have a monthly meeting with an officer just to talk through the impact on the ground. Might I suggest that we set up a similar arrangement with the 4 local members? And when we get to the Glastonbury project, we can do something similar as well. It's not possible to include all the local members on the boards, as we know, and we need that point of contact. So if we can just take that on board, I don't want to, it was suggested to put it as an amendment. I don't want to go through that because every time we put something down, it should be a standing policy that we tell local councillor anyway. It's in our code of conduct, I believe. Ross.
To widen that, we have got planned a update to all members on regeneration projects, and this falls within the regeneration project. So in addition to local members, there will be a broader briefing on regeneration, which I'm very aware that it is needed. And I welcome improving on local members' information. We've also, just to reassure you, we've done a lot of learning from the Yeovil redress, which has been a very prolonged project for some years through COVID. And so hopefully when we do this public groundwork, we will avoid some of the, not only the COVID, but also the contractors' demise, but also some of the other communication issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Just looking around the room.
Thank you, Chair. Just in respect of recommendation B that provides delegation, as a result of that delegation, I believe the last sentence is superfluous.
Yeah.
And therefore I would suggest that's omitted from the recommendation.
Okay, is everyone happy to omit that sentence? I think that's more of a drafting amendment rather than a reading amendment. Would that be correct? Or will I need an amendment? I need an amendment. There we go. Can I see a proposal to remove that sentence? Councillor Lloyd. Seconder to remove that sentence. Councillor Lasham. Those in favour of removing that sentence? Thank you very much. So we've removed that last sentence. So we have recommendations in A to appoint the contractor, in B to delegate to the lead member for economic development, planning and assets, to confirm that and to enter into additional discussion to de-scope the project. Okay, so I see a motion and second, please. Councillor Rob White, second councillor Liz Lightcon, all those in favour, please. And those against. Stuart, thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you.
On this. I know it's not been the smoothest of rides to get here, but I think it's like a field celebration.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm conscious we've been going for 2.5 hours. I'm just looking around. Do we want to take a comfort break or a lunch break? When's our lunch coming on? There is a lunch break scheduled after the next item. That's not I'm not anticipating item 11 taking us a long time. So shall we just crack on and do item 11 and take a lunch break? Okay, we're going to crack on with item 11 and take a lunch break. So it's over. So, once again, can I remind colleagues that there is some confidential information in the appendices. If you wish to raise any points around the confidential information, you will need to do so. Please notify me in advance, and we will exclude the press and public. Not sure if there's any press and public here still, but nevertheless.
Thank you, Chair. This recommendation in front of us today is to award this contract support home care provision, which is vital for adults to deliver a flexible and sustainable high quality service. This will help with the reduction in hospital admissions and delay in discharge and long-term care placements. This contract will help us to provide a service area where capacity has been an issue. Our continuing focus to provide people with care and support so they can live their lives the way they want to live them. The aim will be to eventually roll the scheme out to further blocks, which will mirror the PCN's primary care networks. We must remember the council has a statutory duty to meet the social care needs of our residents, and the contract in front of us today will deliver part of this, providing 1,000 hours of care a week to residents in this area. I believe our main focus must be to keep residents in their own home where they want to live as long as possible, and this contract enables to do. And if you've got any questions, I've got Vicky here. We'll hand over to Vicky. If you've got any issues, it was it? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, there's no further comments. Just first of all, looking around the executive members and associate league members, I'm not seeing any hands at all. So over to Francis Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, Lord, getting wrong years again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I can't but support good arrangements to support people in their homes and comfortable with water. Well, the bit that's missing for me is understanding what the implications are for the very successful, particularly in the rural parts of Somerset, micro providers. Are there any implications from this decision for them? And maybe at some point, it would be really helpful to have an update on the, I hope, ongoing work to promote the use of micro providers. But that's clearly aside from this paper. But it's really, are there implications for micro providers? What's the scene out there? Does this decision affect you?
Okay, I can see movement to my left. Who's taking that one?
Yeah, I think as part of this contract, we're very much promoting working together, not just for micro providers, but with all community assets that are available locally. So our goal and aim is to have our commissioned care providers working alongside micro providers a lot more closely than they are now. So our promotion of micro providers continues as has been, and our aim is to get our care market to work a lot closer with them.
A briefing at some point, please. All members.
Mel.
It's always been about augmented care, hasn't it? And about how you do it. You have to understand that our micro providers aren't domiciliary care providers. A lot of them aren't registered and therefore offering that critical, do I need support to get up to bath, to do all the things we want to do. So it is really about augmented care. This starts to help that starts to help micro providers and our long care providers work as one where they can
And that's the benefit to people. So they have choice about the things that they need to do within the budgets that we have available, that they are assessed as having. So let's be clear, people have an assessment with their budget, and then that budget gives them an amount of money. How we then choose to spend that depends on how they do that. And this should start to help it. It should also help our rural patches, because we need to do it, and we need to do it in certain areas. And it is within the budget that we have. I just wanted to make sure that everybody can follow around that within this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions in the room? Just checking online. Cannot see any, so we'll move to the recommendations. Thank you, the officers, for your work on this. So recommendation A is to approve the outcome of the tender process as set out there. B, the approval of the framework, and C and D are around confidentiality. Just looking across at Mr. Clark, has he got any amendments this time? No amendments this time, fantastic. Can I see a proposal, Councillor Dean Ruggles? Can I see a second, Councillor Desmond? All those executive league members in favour, please? Yeah, and those against, that is clearly carried. Thank you so much to all the team in helping to deliver this. And we have now scheduled from 12:45 to 1:15 a lunch break. And the amazing news is we're 10 minutes ahead of schedule, so you get 10 minutes extra break time blocked. Thank you very much for being here.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I'm just putting the sound on. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, I've got a technical problem. I'm actually abroad, and having been listening to the meeting, my question probably will seem extremely pedantic, but I am going to ask it. As part of the highway contracts, I'm sure the council has made sure that all the new council department contracts will have a maintenance in place for all the cleaning of the bus and coach station. But can I ask, please, it's very important, because we've been neglected for so long, that Wells, the interchange of Shepton Mallet, Glastonbury Street and Frome coach and bus stations get some special attention, and perhaps they could start at that end. They were obviously priorly owned by Mendip Council, but then now I understand they're all part of your responsibility. I also would like to add that we, as the bus users of this area, totally support your hypothecation of coach and bar and car parking charges, and hope it will fund better bus and coach services and public infrastructure in our area. And thank you for giving me time to speak.
You're very welcome. Marissa, where are you at with Preston?
At the moment, I'm in a wonderful place just north of Malaga in the mountains.
Excellent. So we've gone from Watchet to Frome to Malaga in one meeting.
We have indeed. That would be a wonderful bus service. If only Mr. Mike Rigby could have put it in place. It would have lots of takers.
Okay, just to highlight that might be an aspiration that is currently on the table.
Yeah, I think what an aspiration too many, that one. Let's just get the Wells to Western please.
Thank you for your question, Rosa, and I'm guessing it's Councillor Rigby to respond. I haven't checked my notes, and Councillor Rigby, have you emptied your mouth before you answer?
No, I'm sorry, I had rosemary in my teeth. Thank you very much for your question, Rosa. The new highways contracts have been designed to accommodate a wider range of unitary council services than the previous highways contract. For instance, the surfacing contract could be utilised for a wide range of council asset needs, such as surfacing car parks or other spaces, and the new assets contract can be used for a wide range of construction activity in the public realm, if on a case-by-case basis this offers better value for money than other potential routes to market. The new highways contracts will not meet the maintenance needs of all our assets, For instance, we envisage that specialist contracts will be needed for bus shelter cleaning and maintenance. We need to review the maintenance arrangements as each district had different systems and contracts in place. Some had earmarked budgets and some undertook ad hoc maintenance when required. There were no dedicated staff associated with these services, so Transport in Somerset is now taking responsibility for these activities. We need to establish what budget provision there is and then establish a level of service and delivery mechanisms that reflect the budget. There will, of course, also be facilities that are not our responsibility, so we will have to clearly identify these. All this will take a while, unfortunately, so please bear with us while we work through this. As part of the current financial review, we're also considering the implications of using hypothecated revenue from parking charges to fund transport services and infrastructure, just like you suggest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the answer. Very, thank you for the question, Rosa. So we move on to the substantive item 12. Councillor Rigby, please.
Thank you. We recently let a new term maintenance contract, and members will have heard me say in respect of that contract how we have split the work up from the previous term maintenance contract. These contracts before you today, 3 of those split out contracts, they are surfacing, surface dressing and new assets. So surfacing, as you may expect, reasonably self-explanatory, is the practice of surfacing large areas of highway. We're proposing a 4-year contract with a possible 4-year extension. Surface dressing is an activity typically undertaken in the summer because of the temperature that's required to do that. That's where you'll see an emulsion laid on top of an existing road surface with new chippings then pressed into that. That again we're proposing a 4-year contract with a possible 4-year extension. And then finally, the new assets contract. So that could be things like building new active travel routes. It could be new bus priority routes and any small safety improvements that are needed. And that's a 4-year framework agreement. I can't put any value on that because it will be effectively on a call-off basis. But the servicing contract is worth about, it's worth, I'm supposed to mention the number, so I won't mention the number just in case. But it is going to save, it's going to cost us a little bit more money. The surface dressing contract will cost us a bit less than we've been used to paying. And so overall, there's a net saving to the council. So over to Mike O'Dowd-Jones, who's with us here in the room, in case he wants to add anything to that.
Mike, just before you start, I believe there's somebody with a open mic online. Just you can please manage to mute them. Okay, thank you. And from Mike O'Dowd-Jones, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, not too much to add to Councillor Rigby's introduction, other than to say we've been through a robust procurement process on this, as we've outlined in the previous executives for the term maintenance contract. So following the same processes, I would draw your attention to the financial implications section, particularly, I guess, given the financial situation of the council, and just to be clear, these are capital budgets for which we have a good certainty of the forward funding from the Department for Transport, with our maintenance grants likely to be increasing in the future. We also have a healthy pipeline of Department for Transport funds to build new assets such as active travel schemes, bus priority schemes, etc. So we're comfortable that in awarding these contracts, we do have a good pipeline to put through them. And as has been said, we don't need to use them if we don't have to. So every year we can kind of rebalance our spend through them and match the finances that we have available. So there's no commitment to spend money through these contracts if we don't ultimately have it. So that's the good one to say at this point in time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Any comments? First of all, this is of course a commercial confidential report. If anyone refers to the confidential bits of the appendix, please give us advance notice so we can do the formal bits of excluding the press and public who aren't here but maybe online. So just be aware of that as we proceed, please. Councillor Dixie Dutch.
Thank you. Not going to refer to anything in the appendix. I just want to say that I really welcome the climate change and sustainability implications in this kind of referred to in this report. So hardwired into the contract is a 50% reduction in carbon emissions over 4 to 8 years. There is also going to be some baseline measuring in year 1. So we are really going to be taking a kind of evidence-based approach to kind of carbon emissions in terms of kind of highways contracts, which is really welcome. And in point 20, there's kind of detailed bullet points of how that decarbonisation will be achieved. So this just feels like a really positive move forward to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dixie. Totally agree. Any other questions from around the table? Just looking around the room. Any comments, questions from members or online? Not seeing anything. So, Mike and your team, thank you so much for bringing this forwards. Really do appreciate the hard work that's gone into this. I think we've got an excellent deal here. Can I see a formal proposal for this one, please? For both Councillor Rigby and second Councillor. Just take us through the recommendations, the approval of the 4-year contracts is set out in A, B, C, and to delegate future decisions regarding the extension to the executive lead member responsible for the highway services. Are we happy with those recommendations? Mr. Clarkson, that's excellent. All those in favour? All those against? That's clearly carried. Thank you very much, and thank you. Item 13 is the voluntary community faith and social enterprise strategic funding document 2, and Councillor Theo Butford. So introduce, please.
Thank you very much. Members will recall that in September, the leader of the council signed a memorandum of understanding with jointly with the ICB, with the voluntary community, faith and social enterprise sector. Remember all of those in the right order, well done me. This is part of our wider strategy of engagement with the DCFSE sector. The next phase is to commit to a longer term, in this case 3-year term, funding settlement with 2 of the key partners within that sector. Citizens Advice, which members will be aware has predominantly merged across Somerset. There's a slight, where Somerset is never doing its own thing, but the arrangement is sort of that between the 2 of them. And with Spark Somerset, often known as the Council Voluntary Service. These arrangements provide a 3-year funding package to help with their core services, which will enable those 2 organisations to continue and provide a wider range of services across the board. Members will be very well aware of Citizens Advice, I'm sure. Spark does very important work supporting the voluntary sector more widely. So the fact that they exist enables a lot of those organisations. I think they had dealings with gave advice to 650 organisations in the last year. So that's a really important part of strengthening the DCFSE sector across Somerset, which as we approach incredibly challenging times, all of us, not least the Somerset Council, the role of that sector is only going to become more important. It's really important we make these long-term commitments to those organisations to help them continue to do their work. I'll hand over to Sarah Skirton, who's going to give us more information.
Thank you, Chair. Many of the points have been covered now in relation to Spark and Citizen Advice. If members would like further information, please do ask. In tandem with the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, at an officer level, we've been working across the whole council to review the relationships and the funding agreements that have been in place from the predecessor local authorities with a view to making it more strategic so that the relationships are more targeted and effective, and also to see how we are funding and identify any duplication, but also get a clear handle on that. So that work is well progressed. it is still continuing, but we really did want to bring before members the opportunity to make a decision to support our key strategic partners, Citizens Advice and Spark, and to be able to move from one-year funding arrangements to multi-year funding arrangements, which not only would provide some level of security or assurance in the current situation, but also reduce those intensive administration burden on both the council and those organisations, enables them to plan and resource their workforce and their activities. In terms of the financial side of things for this, the funding that we are asking members to agree to is currently within existing budgets. For Spark, it represents a very, very small uplift on the total of the previous funding by about 9,000. Citizens Advice, there is a reduction over time. We are asking for a staggered reduction. So in year one, it will reduce 2.8% from current levels. Years 2 and 3, it'll be 7.4%. But as mentioned, that can be covered within the overall envelope for partnerships and localities budget. With relation to Spark, it's an infrastructure contract. And whilst we're looking for this council to commit up to 250, it is a joint commission with the ICB, so there is a level of flexibility there, but that is the commitment we're asking from this council in this particular paper. The paper also seeks a delegation from myself in consultation with Councillor Buck-Philip to develop an approach for small grants. You'll be aware that different councils had their own arrangements. We are looking at those as well and thinking about what the best mechanism might be for managing those in the future. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions. I'll also just mention that my colleague Jeff Brown is online, so anything specifically detailed that I can't respond to. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikia. Thank you, Sarah. I'll just make run through comments, questions, or concerns. Ross.
Thank you, Sarah. Really helpful to see this, and I'm delighted that we're supporting the voluntary sector. I think as we go forward, the voluntary sector are going to be really key to supporting our communities. As a council, we are going to be reducing in size and range. The one thing I just wanted to get clarity on was the small grants. Are these for the voluntary sector or for communities?
These are the sort of grants that you probably remember from Mensa, the kind of the legacy grants, so they would be for communities to apply for. So if you take DCFSE twice then, so it could be a charity, it could be intermediate capacity, including city, town, and parish. So it's the sort of thing where we say we've got to put the money, these are criteria, please submit an application with those kinds of grants. Also to mention, we will be looking at the lotteries as well, because two of the predecessor councils have lotteries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just looking around for any more contributions, not seeing anybody, so around the room, Councillor Francis Nicholson. Good afternoon, Francis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Support for the sector is hugely important. It's the lifeblood of this county. I am looking at perhaps for a bit of reassurance as to how much work is going on in terms of resilience in the sector. I suppose the question is this an aspirational decision for the next future years, which will be immediately prejudiced if we had to go down to the second 114 notice, or whether this would stand. If it's aspirational and in fact and such a notice would mean that funding couldn't be provided for future years, then is there work with the voluntary sector to make sure they're A, aware of it, and B, developing their own resilience? Because otherwise they'll come to depend on something which might not be there.
Thank you. Just looking around as to who wants to take that. Sarah? Yeah, I think it's not just everything was to want to take it. Sorry, you've asked a question that's yeah. Do you want to have first out, and if anyone wants to add anything after that, we'll go around.
So from an opposite perspective, certainly where you've got contractual relationship, there is always the option to sees that relationship, and that would be within the contractual documentation. It was felt, and I think, to be fair, I think our strategic partners understand the position we're in. It was felt that this was the way to go to pursue multi-year agreements, accepting that things could be out of our control in the future, so that we have as much assurance as we possibly can give in the current circumstances and enable that planning.
I think the difficulty is that we don't think we're in that 118. I've done it. I've done it. It's due to inflation, sorry. The section 114 situation, that is the entire point, we lose control. And that is why, there is an attraction to walk away in a disaster sense. We know it's our responsibility not to, because the reasons exactly as you suggest. Jason?
Yes, so just to clarify, because I think the 114 seems to cover everything at the moment. It's kind of not quite that. So the 114 is the personal responsibility on me, first of all, and I have a duty to inform and consult my colleagues, being head of health service and monitoring officer, but it is my personal duty and responsibilities. When you issue a 114, the requirement is that full council has to meet within 21 days. And it's only during that period you have the ban on non-essential expenditure. Council within that period must meet and come up with a credible plan of how it's going to resolve the problem. If council does that, the 114 disappears. The issue then is that does trigger Secretary of State writing and bringing in commissioners. So the 114 is only for a very short period of time and then it disappears. So just for that clarification, I think people think it continues for an ongoing period. It doesn't. You have to have a credible plan. What you saw in Birmingham, just as an example, they come forward with that plan. The 151 officer then made an assessment that the evaluation process was taking too long to settle, so it therefore wasn't credible, and issued another section in 140. So they then had to meet again and agree a new timetable. I hope that's helpful.
That's very helpful, very useful clarity, and I probably used the wrong terms, but in circumstances when either commissioners come in or we have made a credible budget out of nothing, then this feels to me that these decisions now will actually won't be possible for them to stand, given they are multi-year. And what I am concerned about is to make sure that the VCSFE is absolutely clear that it cannot depend upon these decisions.
Sarah answered that question in her statement, and that dialogue has taken place. Okay, Helen, do you want to add?
Yes, thank you. Just because I think Councillor Nicholson did raise also a good question, which is around the resilience that we need to be fostering and engendering within our voluntary sector. And people have said before me how important the voluntary sector and I feel like saying the right things. The voluntary sector with all of those groups within it are really crucial to preventative work, to essential work, to gluing communities together. All of that, no one can underestimate how, or I just can't overstate how important it is. I'm pretty confident, and I'm sure Sarah would acknowledge this, I'm pretty confident that a lot of the work that Spark do and we have been doing within our conversations with the voluntary sector is to do that engendering around resilience. And I know even in kind of local parishes and towns, when we're starting to give out grants to voluntary sector, we have to encourage them that they cannot rely always on one source or a source of funding. And I'm sure some of the work that Spark does is around encouraging that. But I'm sure Sarah's going to write and I've got that wrong.
So.
Thank you, Chair. No, absolutely, that's right. And I think the point to make is that we are really focusing on that strategic relationship. So we are in regular dialogue with those key partners, and certainly moving to this multi-year arrangement gets rid of the challenge that perhaps we've had in recent years where our partners don't know what the situation is until later in the planning cycle, the financial cycle within the year. So everything within our gift is providing as much assurance as we possibly can. And resilience is fundamental, I think, at the moment to those conversations that we're having with the sector. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Just looking, nothing online. If we're all happy, we have proposals for the 3-year core funding agreement with Citizens by Somerset, Citizens by West Somerset. The total core funding allocation for a 5-year contract joint with the ICB to support BCSFE infrastructure, to allocate a minimum local authority contribution for the next 3 years, and to delegate responsibility to Service Director, partnerships and localities in consultation with League Members for Transformation and Human Resources to finalise and agree the small granting mechanism. Do I see a proposal for that, please? Councillor Philip, do I hear a seconder? Councillor Liz Lashon. Of those in favour of the amendments? Those against? That is clearly carried. Which concludes our agenda items. Please note that our next meeting is on the 6th of December, and with great disappointment, it's not in Malaga, it's in Shepton Mallet. The bus service might be better to Shepton Mallet, so we're going to exploring that and look forward to our meeting. Thank you so much to all officers and members who have presented today, and thank you very much for spending this mission. Thank you.
Thank you.